Well, hey there everybody. It's time now to go to the next step in our clay process, and that is to glaze things. The glaze bay that I have available is, well, just like the rest of this facility, pretty darned impressive. We'll start off by taking a look at the possible glazes and then the process of what it takes to glaze things. So up here, we'll notice that there is a collection of tests in two different types of clay for all 18 of the standard glazes. This is also tests inside of a reduction firing. If we remember the gas kilns, those are reduction kilns. I have another set of tiles over here for the electric kilns, which is what we're using for our process. So the top ones here are porcelain, and the bottoms are stoneware. The type of clay makes a difference in how the glaze reacts. And if we come down here a little bit to a glaze that I rather like, well, here, Amber Celadon has some good things to be shown. We notice this has a run all the way down to here, means that just runs like crazy. So you have to leave extra space at the bottom of the piece or a way to catch it, otherwise your piece will stick to the shelf. And if we look at this, let's look at one that's a little bit more obvious. Here we go, soda yellow, another glaze that I really like. We'll borrow this one. So what happens is they dip the whole thing down to here, and that is glaze number 5, and they dip down to here in glaze number 12. This way, you see what happens when it's just a single color or two colors mixed together. And this is a combination of a soda yellow with a glaze called satin or, semi-matte blue on porcelain. On stoneware, this is what happens. And the reason that it's so different is the amount of iron that's inside of this clay body. Let me know if there's any questions while I'm going through this. Oh, damn it. Shh. No swearing on podcasts. Over here, Kirsten and I did a set of tests of the glazes inside the electric firings. And we numbered the backs. 3, 4, 5. So this is that same soda yellow inside of the electric firings. Looks very, very different. Any other questions up to this point? Okay, so I've prepped most of the pieces that we're going to be glazing today along that line. I've left a couple here because I wanted to show that next step in the process. So this is fresh out of the kiln. And what happens is, at times, bits of dust collect inside the kiln. So what we do is we wash off the piece to make sure that there's no dust collecting. Because those dust particles will potentially make bubbles in your glaze and make it very, very sharp and unpleasant for the user. At that point, after we've done this, after they're all wet, stack them over here so that they dry out. And remember, there's those ones decorated with the snowflakes. we have various pieces. And down here, I'm going to be demoing that next step in the process, at least that I do. Not everybody does this part because not everybody likes to actually use wax. What the wax does is it resists the glaze, and so it makes it easier to clean up while going into the firing. Because if there's any glaze on the bottom, guess what? It sticks to the shelf. Makes a lot more work, potentially ruins the piece, potentially ruins the shelf, and you have to then pay for the shelf. And shelves are bloody expensive. And I've paid for too many of those already. So we have a greenish wax, and what we're going to do is just paint it on. And we're going to paint it on just to this point here, because that'll give us that break between the glaze and the shelf. And we don't want to put this on very thick because it just needs to be 1 molecule thick. Any more than that, it takes longer to dry. And you have to wait for it to dry before you can actually dip it in the glaze. So, not really very difficult at all. Challenge is, and this is important, if you drip glaze or drip wax on the mug somewhere, it'll never come off. So that will resist the glaze, and you won't be able to, that'll be just a bare clay spot on your piece. With this type of firing, doesn't make any difference because it vitrifies, it turns to glass. So it's not going to affect the usefulness of the piece at all. Challenge is, I should have done one of these right away so that I could then show how to mix the glazes and actually do the dipping and cleaning up. But I wasn't bright enough to do that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go through and put the wax on all the pieces. Won't stay live because that would be really, really boring. And when I come back, probably in a half hour to an hour, I will show the process of mixing the glaze, dipping the pieces, and also on these pieces that have been decorated with the stamps, I will demonstrate the process that I use for adding colorant to that, and we will discuss the difference between glazes and straight colorants. I'm glad that you all took a moment to stop by and say hi. If you have any questions, always let me know. Oh, there is one more thing that I should talk about. In the glazes, it's not color theory that is used to determine what happens when you mix two colors. It's chemistry. Let me go grab a good example of what happens. I don't have one right off the top of my head. I will find one for when we talk next time. Oh, Merry Christmas, Baldrick. Thank you so much. Enjoy the day, folks. And we'll be back in a little while. Like I said, half hour to an hour after I get everything glazed and this has a chance, or waxed, and then it has a chance to dry. Talk to you soon.